Millions on the move this Monday night. The holiday rush on the roads and the runways.
It's kind of hectic because I see a lot of people and it's like 6 a.m.
What's in the forecast and the advice to travelers. Protecting air passenger rights.
And I'll have to make a claim afterwards.
Why proposed changes to federal regulations are not flying with critics. Accused murderer Luigi Mangione's plea in a New York courtroom. What his lawyer is worried about. And the holidays for war heroes in the hospital.
And the guys that went through it should be appreciated.
The lessons these veterans want to pass on to the next generation.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. As thousands of Canadians hit the road for the holidays, there is a chance the weather could interfere with their plans. There are weather warnings in place in several areas from coast to coast to coast, shown in red on this map. BC's south coast is bracing for powerful winds and heavy rain. A white Christmas is far more likely in parts of Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, where snowfall warnings are now in place. Neethu Garcha looks at how the winter weather could snarl your travel plans.
As holiday travel ramps up, airports like Toronto's Pearson are preparing for more snow. Travelers at the country's largest airport, which is expected to hit peak volumes this week, are being advised to check an online wait time dashboard for real-time updates on departures and arrivals.
It's kind of hectic because I see a lot of people and it's like 6 a.m.
So I've never seen it this full. It was a shock.
And between December 20th and January 6th, we're going to see close to 2.7 million passengers passing through Toronto Pearson.
Local transit authorities are preparing for the impacts of freezing temperatures.
There could be some icing that occurs, so we need to do extra salting around our stations to make sure that it's safe for people to walk.
As some provinces deal with winter weather travel advisories.
15 or more centimeters for parts of southern Ontario, Quebec, into the Maritimes, and there could be some totals here that get close to 30 centimeters in New Brunswick.
As Alberta faces milder than usual weather, in British Columbia, a powerful Pacific storm is about to hit the coast. This is what the calm before the storm looks like in Victoria. Someone paddleboarding and several others out for a walk along the ocean.
We've been begging for snow, but just wind and rain.
This is beautiful to be able to get out and walk and just enjoy the water.
I would agree. I'm out enjoying while it's calm, trying to avoid the storm.
That province's power authority is preparing for outages.
We were able to restore the vast majority of customers within about 24 hours, and we're hoping that if we do see significant damage over the next several days, that we're able to do the same thing.
The blasts of severe weather could make for messy travel conditions, and as is often the case this time of year, travelers are being warned to prepare for delays and cancellations. Neethu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
At the height of the busiest travel time of the year, some disruptions are almost inevitable. How airlines deal with delays and cancellations, though, has been a hot topic for a long time. And now the federal government is proposing new rules to protect and compensate passengers. Heidi Petracek looks at what's being proposed and whether it will make any difference to frustrated flyers.
During the busy holiday travel season,
we're looking at seeing potentially around 10,000 people per day.
It's not hard to find people grounded by airline delays. The Thompsons stuck until Tuesday morning.
We were here at 7 o'clock this morning for an 8:45 flight, and we waited because there were mechanical issues. And then at noon it got canceled.
The West family in the same situation.
I just think it would be great if airlines took some responsibility for their business practices. It would be great if customers had some more rights.
A problem Ottawa is trying to address with a round of proposed changes to Canada's air passenger protection regulations.
This is not a final regulation. It is for consultation.
If passed, the new rules would include requiring airlines seat children under 14 with parents or a guardian, giving passengers delayed at least 2 hours, food and hotel stays for up to 72 hours, and cutting the time to hand out refunds in half to 15 days.
It hasn't been thought through.
But this critic says the changes aren't closing loopholes and would still fall short on compensation, failing to require financial payouts to passengers for delays caused by labor disruptions or mechanical issues, as done in Europe.
Just because one aircraft needs some maintenance, even if it's unexpected, say an oil leak before takeoff, that's not exceptional. And
In Europe, they got it right.
And the council representing airlines is also dissatisfied, claiming the changes would cost too much for carriers to implement.
And that just adds to the cost of travel in a system that is already far too expensive, especially compared to other jurisdictions around the world.
It will take until next year before any amendments become reality. Far too late this time around for the Thompsons, who shelled out for an overnight hotel stay.
And I'll have to make a claim afterwards.
Joining the tens of thousands of claims for compensation Canadians have made since the air passenger rights rules took effect. Heidi Petrachik, Global News, Halifax.
Tens of thousands of Canadians are still waiting for Canada Post to deliver mail and packages. The 5-week strike created a huge backlog. Canada Post says it's ramping up its operations ahead of Christmas, but many packages likely won't make it in time. Today, the Postal Service started accepting new international mail and parcels. The Crown Corporation says some employees worked the weekend to catch up on Christmas deliveries, but warns delays could continue into the new year. Canada Post started processing new commercial mail last week after Canada's Industrial Relations Board ordered striking employees back to work. Statistics Canada is giving its final snapshot into the state of the Canadian economy for 2024. According to the latest data, the economy grew 0.3% in October thanks to strong performance in the energy sector, largely mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction. The growth follows a 0.2% increase in September, but preliminary data for November shows the GDP likely shrank by 0.1%, the first contraction this year, signaling the economy may, in fact, be slowing down. Canada's Prime Minister is keeping a low profile as calls for him to resign mount. Justin Trudeau chaired a virtual cabinet meeting on Canada-U.S. relations today, but he has lost the support of dozens of MPs, some of whom are going on the record saying Trudeau has become a liability to the party. As Mackenzie Gray reports, what everyone is watching for now is how Trudeau will respond.
For the first time in weeks, it's quiet outside Justin Trudeau's office. The holidays, a reprieve for the Prime Minister,
a wonderful evening,
who's suffering his worst political crisis ever. Over 20 of his own MPs are now publicly calling for him to quit, and that number could soon be growing. Global News has learned Trudeau's Atlantic caucus is meeting today to discuss the question of if the Prime Minister can stay on. But we already know how some Atlantic MPs feel.
It's incumbent on me and all my colleagues to do what we think is best for our party. And what's best for our party is a change in leadership.
I wouldn't call it delusional, but he's seeing something that I don't see, that my constituents don't see.
Sean Casey and Wayne Long were the first two Liberals to publicly call for Trudeau to quit during October's caucus revolt, which was kicked off when Atlantic Caucus Chair Cody Blows told his Liberal caucus colleagues East Coast MPs had a difficult but frank discussion about the future of the party.
Is there going to be another election?
Since then, questions over Trudeau's ability to stay on have dogged him, but went to another level when former Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland quit cabinet just hours before she was set to deliver the fall economic statement, a move that's upset now former cabinet colleagues.
Ms. Haidu, what's your comment on?
Including Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haidu, whose sources say criticized Freeland for how she quit during an Ontario Liberal caucus meeting held yesterday, which saw dozens of Liberals call for Trudeau to leave. The former finance minister participated in that meeting, but sources tell Global News she did not speak. Haidu, backed by Kamal Khera, the Diversity, Inclusion and Persons with Disabilities Minister, Chrystia Freeland's actions are deeply disappointing, sources say she said privately. At a time when unity is critical, Freeland's decision to undermine the Prime Minister and misgovernment is reckless and self-serving.
Missing from all of this, any clarity from Justin Trudeau. He's ducked questions on what's next for him, but he is continuing to press on with his job as Prime Minister. Participating in the Cabinet Committee on Canada-U.S. Relations today, Donna, a group that Chrystia Freeland used to chair.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. In Montreal, police are investigating a brazen smash and grab at a jewelry store. Surveillance video shows a vehicle crashing through the front door of the store on Saturday evening. The shopkeeper tried to fight off a group of masked thieves and was injured as a result. They smashed display cases, stuffed jewelry into bags, and made off with hundreds of thousands of dollars in merchandise. A Christmas present from the U.S. president. Coming up, what Joe Biden gave to dozens of prisoners on death row. The man accused of shooting and killing the CEO of United Healthcare, Chief Executive Brian Thompson, on a Manhattan street has pleaded not guilty. Luigi Mangione was escorted into a New York courthouse today by half a dozen officers. The 26-year-old faces 11 charges, including first-degree murder as an act of terrorism. Mangione's attorney complained about police parading him in perp walks that she claims are perfectly choreographed and utterly political. And she said statements from New York's mayor has turned her client into a political pawn, and she's concerned about him receiving a fair trial. U.S. President Joe Biden has commuted the sentences of 37 of 40 federal inmates who are on death row, which means their penalty switches to life in prison without parole. Biden used to support capital punishment, but has softened his stand over the years. Reggie Cicchini explains why he's had a change of heart and whose lives will be spared as a result.
In the twilight of his political career, President Joe Biden, under pressure from human rights groups and religious leaders, offered an act of mercy to some of America's most heinous criminals. In his final weeks, Biden commuted the sentences of 37 people on federal death row to life in prison.
We're very grateful for what he did.
Biden spared people involved in deadly bank robberies or drug deals, and those convicted of killing law enforcement agents, leaving 3 still eligible for death. Perpetrator of the Boston Marathon bombing, a man convicted of carrying out a murder at a synagogue, and a man convicted of a mass shooting at a black church in South Carolina. But opponents of executions are urging Biden to clear these men as well.
When Donald Trump gets to execute them, what will really be happening is that they will be given a global platform for their agenda of hatred.
The president made clear that terrorism and hate-motivated murder would not get a pass. But for the rest, he leaned into his faith. In good conscience, he said in a statement, "I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted."
We have to bring back the death penalty.
13 of 16 federal executions since 1976 were directed by Donald Trump, who campaigned on a return to broad use.
There are conflicting feelings here for me today.
Sharon Risher lost her mother in the 2015 shooting at the AME Church in Charleston, where the shooter is one of 3 still on death row. She wants Biden to commute that sentence out of fears of unending grief.
People tend to forget the human side of this. When you put a killer on death row, the families are left to be hostages for the years and years of appeal that will continue to come.
Amid the praise lies criticism, with some families of death row inmates' actions calling this an abuse of power. And while the incoming president's team deemed this abhorrent, it's a decision now set in stone, unable to be reversed. Reggie Cicchini, Global News, Washington.
An ethics report has found former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz regularly paid for sex, including with a 17-year-old girl, while he was in office. The 37-page report follows a 4-year investigation. It found Gaetz also purchased and used illegal drugs and violated multiple state laws related to sexual misconduct while he was in office. Gaetz resigned from Congress in November. He was President-elect Donald Trump's top pick for Attorney General. Gaetz denies any improper conduct, saying the claims are part of a smear campaign by his political rivals. Entering the merge lane next, why 3 rival automakers want to join forces. This is the moment large cracks appeared on a bridge in Brazil just before it collapsed as vehicles were crossing. The bridge connected 2 states in Brazil's north. It's believed 2 cars, a motorcycle, and a truck carrying sulfuric acid fell into the river below, and at least 2 people were killed. In Turkey, the crew of a container ship had a narrow escape as it rolled onto its side in the port of Istanbul. It happened while the vessel was being loaded with containers. Maritime officials blame a cargo imbalance. 10 of the 15-person crew managed to run off the ship and onto the dock. 5 others jumped into the water. 2 of Japan's biggest automakers have confirmed they're in discussions for a multi-billion-dollar merger. The CEOs of Honda and Nissan announced they're considering joining forces, which would make them one of the world's biggest car producers. The goal is to stay alive in the increasingly competitive field of electric vehicles, which China is dominating right now. Mike Armstrong on the plans to merge and what it could mean.
It's not something they'd be doing if they didn't feel they had to. In business, there are marriages of convenience. This is more of a merger of necessity. CEO of Honda says competition from China and other companies is changing the automotive industry and that the merger is needed to fight back. The talks will at first involve Honda and Nissan. Mitsubishi Motors is considering joining. Nissan is its main shareholder. Together, they would become the third largest car manufacturer in the world, behind only Toyota and Volkswagen. But those companies aren't the reason for the merger. Japanese automakers are playing catch-up when it comes to electric vehicles. Tesla and a Chinese company, BYD, are what the Japanese government itself has called an existential threat. The talks started because we believe we must build up capabilities, he says, otherwise we will be beaten. China's auto sector has now, according to some in the industry, passed Japan as the top exporter globally. China's domestic market is massive as well, the biggest in the world, and more than half of the vehicles sold in it in 2024 were hybrids or EVs. To compete, Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi had already agreed to share components and research. Monday's merger talks go much further. They also may impact North American activities. Honda's CEO was in Ontario in April announcing a $15 billion investment that included a new EV assembly plant and a battery plant.
This is generational investments that
provincial and federal governments promised $5 billion in incentives to make it happen. What might the merger mean?
I think in the very short term, I don't expect any changes in the market. Right now, there's just a lot of question marks, and I don't think a lot of people have the answers.
Now, if the talks go well, the goal is to have a formal merger agreement by June and to be listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange by August of 2026 as a new company. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Italy's largest set of medieval mosaics is shining bright again after a restoration project that lasted over a year. Many of the glass tiles were given a deep clean or replaced, and new lighting was installed. The stunning mosaics were built in the 12th century and line the walls of Sicily's Monreale Cathedral, which became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015. The art spans 6,500 square meters and contains more than 2 kilograms of gold. Santa's helpers rappelling down the walls of a hospital. Next, the Christmas surprise for patients. Santa's traded in their sleighs for gondolas in northern Italy, bringing holiday cheer to the Grand Canal in Venice. The regatta is one of that city's annual pre-Christmas traditions. Santas also took to the water in Greece, dozens of them paddling along the shore of Thessalonica, the country's second biggest city. And in Croatia, some Santas got creative in their own way. They delivered gifts by descending from the roof of a children's hospital. Christmas can be a difficult time for some Canadian veterans and their families. A Montreal hospital is trying to make this year's season a little easier by helping elderly vets share their stories. Global's Amanda Jelowicki visited them and heard the advice they want to share.
A mark of friendship and admiration. These two men share a deep connection. They both served in the Korean War.
I was an orphan. And I wanted to make myself a family with a family. I wanted a family. So I joined the Royal 22nd Regiment.
When I came back, I knew who I was. I knew how brave I was and how scared you can get. I was in peace with myself.
These men are some of the only veterans left at the St. Anne's Veterans Hospital who served in World War II and the Korean War.
I don't talk much about the war. I had lots of friends that died there. I saw a lot of people die. And I was one of the lucky ones. I didn't die.
It was a job to do, and I volunteered to do it. But I don't consider myself a hero.
Howard McNamara is now a remarkable 104 years old. He was just 19 when he joined the Canadian Air Force. He flew Spitfires in World War II. He says for many years he didn't think about his time serving, but he says now it's important to.
Our main purpose in life, you might say, is to make sure that the coming generation know that war is no picnic.
The men all say they're happy at St. Anne's. They're preparing for the Christmas holidays. Staff say they work hard to make the time extra special.
They end up being our family as well. We care for them every day. I see them more than I see my own family.
The veterans all say they learned so much during their time serving and have lessons to teach the young.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Fight for yourself.
Lives all well lived and well served. Amanda Jelowicki, Global News, St. Anne de Bellevue.
That is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is New Harbour, Newfoundland and Labrador. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.